At the Tim Tebow Foundation, the mission is to provide faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need. We're dealing with really heavy issues, and ultimately their human lives on the line. Pulling kids out of the pit of hell, child exploitation, human trafficking, day in and day out. At the Tebow Group, we really have two functions. So when we talk about our mission to fuel and amplify faith, hope, and love, the fuel side, that is how we steward and leverage the investment resources that we've been entrusted with. The amplify side, that's all about how do we steward and leverage the brand side that we've been entrusted with. And what's beautiful is when you put those two together, oh man, that is where the magic happens. God's really been preparing me for this for decades, but it's been a long process to get to a point where I was even partially ready for this role. For the longest time, I've been chasing my identity in all the wrong places. I chased it in trying to build companies, and yet it always came up short. It always came up empty. I was always fortunate to work with a lot of partners, and we really believed we could go further faster together. There started to be some pretty significant clashes that occurred. What I knew is I was not being the Christian leader that I was called to be, because I knew that the Christian leader I was called to be was one that was making a kingdom impact on a daily basis.
I think one of the things that Tommy was looking for was a way to use his skill set for people and for ministry. And we were looking for someone that had a skill set like Tommy's.
Tommy was really longing for a place where he could be with people that he truly saw as partners in the calling that God had on his life.
Our family had just been passionate about the Tim Tebow Foundation for over a decade. We just loved the work they were doing so much. And then I got a phone call that they needed someone to run the for-profit side of the world so that Tim and his wife Demi could spend more time on the nonprofit side.
He knew that he was called to using his skill set, but in a way that could impact not just his community or a country or the nations, but heaven.
And so I sat down with my family and said, look, you need to be part of this decision. And my youngest coming and saying, Dad, just make it count and make us proud. And I actually put that in the front of my notebook now. This is what I look at frequently throughout the week. Because I want to make it count. I want to make my family proud. More importantly than that, though, I want to make my Lord proud.
Tommy was not a leader that came in and bulldozed everything that, we had built up until that point, but that he really came in and I think evaluated the groundwork.
Tim and Demi already had a strong vision for the Christ-centered culture that they wanted to build. I think a big part of my job was just to help draw that out of them and help deploy it into the business.
Tim and I always say we want people on our team and in our organization that truly feel called to be here. Because even in the hard days, God has called you and laid that burden on your heart. And when you can embrace both the joy and the burden of the call, I think that's when you can walk with real joy.
Some of the hardest lessons I'd ever had in business, I needed in that very first week of being with this team. But I got to see through God's kindness what He was preparing me for through some of my hardest moments ever in business 25 years ago. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, quit being a wimp. Like, who cares what the world thinks about you? Stop caring so much about the world thinks and what your employees think and your clients think and your business partners think, and start caring more about what God thinks.